The story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye. The story of love is hello and goodbye. Until we meet again. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. This video is all about the death of Jimi Hendrix, the life and death of Jimi Hendrix, and this amazing last poem / song that he wrote on the night before he died. Or was it suicide? What, did he choke on his own vomit? Was he murdered? 3 different possibilities. The one that most people have heard is that Jimmy took too many drugs, sleeping pills or whatever, and he choked on his own vomit. And that was the story that I heard way back when. There have been numerous theories proposed, and this video is going to go into really talk more about some things that don't get talked about, and I think try to set the record straight about some things that have been said. Now, one thing that we know about Jimmy is that he had this mercurial rise to superstardom. He really, I think right after he was in the Army, he got onto the Nashville circuit. This is in the early 60s, like 61, 62. He was discovered by the Rolling Stones and the Animals, Chas Chandler and Eric Burdon in particular, brought to London. The years that he really became a star were 66 to 70. He died in 70, in September 19th, 1970. Now, during those years, he really became a living legend, and he was traveling and playing all over the world. He was living the life of a rock star, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Now, what I think gets lost in all of that is, first of all, the question that really I think we can ask is, who was Jimi Hendrix? And how did he become who he became? And who did he think he was? Right? And who did he ultimately, because he lived a lot in a very short period of time. He died when he was 27. He was of the 27 club, right? The 2 most famous rock stars that died at 27 were Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison. Janis died first. Jimmy died second. Jim Morrison went around saying he would drink with people, and he would be like, "You're drinking with number 3." He knew he was going to die, and apparently Jimi Hendrix also knew that he was going to die as well. And that's part of what I want to talk about today is, how did these guys know that they were going to die? I've also heard that Ronnie Van Zant of Lynyrd Skynyrd also knew that he was going to die young, and he did. Died before he hit 30. He would tell people that he was gonna die before he was 30. So that's another interesting thing to talk about here. The other thing is that if you look at Jimmy, also Janis, also Jim, they seem, first of all, they were ahead of their time. They don't seem like they were in their 20s. They seem a lot more mature. Jim Morrison once said he felt like he was in his 40s. And that's the way they appear. Like you wouldn't think, oh my God, this is just a young kid. No, they all seemed very mature. They must have lived a lot in a very short period of time, more so than most people do, that live more prosaic lives. So that's one thing. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because I think that Jimi Hendrix really came to an understanding toward the end of his life. I think he, through this process of becoming the superstar, I think that he became clear about what it's all about. And I think he became clear about who he was. And I think that this last poem that he wrote, and his relationship with this young German woman, Monika Dannemann, tells us something. Now, Monika has received a lot of bad press. She has been implicated in his murder, which I think does not really have substance as far as I'm concerned. But there are questions. I want to say that, but I also want to say, let's keep it open. But let's not make her guilty if there are doubts. And I believe there are some serious doubts that she really did not. I would say that she really didn't have much to do with his death. Well, we could talk about that. So this video might be rambling and might be a little bit long. I'm speaking extemporaneously. A lot of people write everything out and they do this a lot more professionally. I'm not doing it professionally, but I hope that by not doing it professionally, I'm going to hit on some things that a lot of people miss, and I think a lot of people make categorical statements about this that we really can't make. I think ultimately this is a mystery. Jimmy was a mystery. We don't really know. We don't know how he died. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think there will be unanswered questions. You got to live with the fact that there will be unanswered questions. If you want to answer the questions, go ahead, but in doing that, you tend to miss other things. For example, this whole thing about Monika, she has been made out to be kind of a villain and as I said, implicated in Jimmy's murder. And I don't think that's, I think the evidence suggests otherwise. First of all, the part of the problem with all of this is, who do you believe? That's the problem with life, right? Who can you trust? Who do you believe? Who's telling the truth? Everyone seems to have some kind of stake. We all lie. There's not a human being alive that has not done anything wrong. Even Jimmy, before he got into the army, apparently because he got into the army because he stole a car and he was joyriding, stole some clothes or whatever, and he went into the army to escape a prison sentence. This is one story. I don't even know if this is exactly true, but I'm just repeating what I've heard said. I'm sure that Jimmy lied to some of the women in his life, right? He probably told them that they were the only one, or that they were going to get married. He definitely told Monika that. Monika believed that they were engaged, that she was his fiancée, and that they were going to get married. At the beginning of her book, let me read this from Jimmy's father, Al. This is what his father says. To whom it may concern, I would like to state that my son Jimi Hendrix was engaged to Monika Dannemann and that they planned to get married. All these slanderous stories written about Monika regarding my son are false. They really loved each other, and that I know myself, and I just want to get the record straight for all times. Now, you could say, well, did his father really write that? Maybe she'd made that up. I think he did. Then his father also wrote, and then Monika did some fabulous paintings of Jimi. This is all in this book. I'm reading from her book, right? Jimi Hendrix, The Inner World of Jimi Hendrix by Monika Dannemann. It's a brilliant book with some very lovely artwork of Jimi, mainly of Jimi. Monika, from the moment I saw your paintings, I realized that you had met Jimi not only in body, but in spirit as well. I can only say from the bottom of my heart, you have remained true to what Jimi was all about. Kind, gentle, and artistically creative. I will add to that, spiritual. He was a very spiritual person, and we're going to get into that here in a moment. Very spiritually aware. Obviously, you just listen to his words, listen to his music. The guy was a genius. Not only a genius, but he was in touch with where creativity comes from. He was in touch with something that most people are not, unless they develop it within themselves. He was in touch with his dreams. He was in touch with his visions. He was able to go into a space where he could, in a flash of inspiration, he could come out with a song in just a very brief period. How many people really can do that? Just come like it's a form of like revelation. He was in touch with the prophetic, revelatory part of our being that most people are not fully in touch with. So that's one thing, we could say about him, I think, pretty much for sure. And one thing that we also, that tends to get missed when people talk about Jimi Hendrix is that he did have some kind of connection with Jesus, which you don't hear in his music because that got edited out. For example, Monika has in the book, she has the original handwritten Purple Haze, and you can see it starts, Purple Haze, Jesus saves. Those are the first words of this song. It was actually a dream. It started out as a dream. It starts off, Purple Haze, Jesus saves. And then the next lines are not in the song either. Purple haze beyond insane, is it pleasure or is it pain? Down on the ceiling, looking up at the bed, see my body painted blue and red, etc. None of that was in the song, right? It was not, especially the part about Jesus, we're talking in the mid-60s, it was not considered by the music industry, by the bigwigs, it was not considered to be marketable to use Jesus in a song, in a pop rock song, if you wanted to sell a lot of records. Leave Jesus in the church. The rock music was for people on the outs with Christianity, for the most part, right? It was for kids who were on the outs with society, had some issues with mainstream religion, etc. Remember in the 60s, Time magazine had that the cover story with God is dead, and this thing about God being dead has been going on for a while, but definitely God was dead in rock music. I mean, there clearly were songs that used the word Jesus, like "Spirit in the Sky" by Norman Greenbaum and some other ones that hit it big. But for the most part, you didn't talk about God. And, the other one worth noting is "God Only Knows" by the Beach Boys. You didn't generally talk about God or Jesus in pop rock music. And to this day, I think, you don't hear a lot of songs on the radio about God or Jesus unless you listen to a Christian rock station or a Christian pop station, then you will. But in general, those things are kept out. And you don't also, I mean, you hear more these days for sure, the word God and so on. But, music is more or less what it's been. The pop music is what it's been for a long time, which is talking about relationships and a lot of times using relationships as a way of talking about something deeper. And sometimes the artist will be using language that if you read it deeper, you could see that there is a spiritual message there. But my point is that most people don't even think that Jimmy had anything connection with Jesus. For example, he talked about the open sky, the electric sky church, right? That was his whole thing. His whole thing was to bring the church. He believed in the outdoor rock concert as a kind of church, as people coming to church, right? But what I think he acknowledged, especially in this last poem that he wrote, he acknowledged that Jesus really meant something to him. And it's a question whether he was declaring himself a follower of Jesus. Did he see himself as a messianic figure? I believe he did. He saw himself as maybe even like a Christ-like figure himself. And he certainly was in a way, especially if he was murdered. And I think there is a case to be made that his manager had him murdered. There's a good case for that. His manager, Michael Jeffrey, definitely, if you look at all the reasons why he might have murdered Jimmy, it looks more reasonable to suggest that than any other scenario. I do want to say that I really think that Monika might have been part of it somehow, but she was unwitting to that. And she probably was afraid, and so she changed her story because she was afraid of what might happen, maybe especially being killed by Michael Jeffrey. I don't know. I think you got to read her book, and then you make a judgment one way or the other. But the other thing I will say here is that first of all, one thing that people don't talk about is Monika's book. That doesn't get mentioned. People don't read her book, apparently. They don't talk about Jimmy's spiritual side, for another thing. They don't talk about... People will quote the last part of this poem that Jimmy wrote, but they will not quote the other parts of this poem. I have never heard a version of this. This is actually a song that Jimmy wrote. And he wrote it, according to Monika at least, he wrote it very late the night before he died. They were up. He wrote this song. He had his guitar. He was playing the guitar. He wrote down very quickly this poem. The poem is right here in her book, and it's definitely his handwriting. I can read you the poem. I will in just a moment. He gave Monika the poem. She showed it to Eric Burden the next day, I believe, and he thought it was a suicide note. And a lot of people hear that last verse, the story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye, the story of love is hello and goodbye until we meet again. Did Jimmy know that he was going to die? It sounds like he did. Some people say he was going to commit suicide. For all we know, maybe he did, because he did take a lot of sleeping pills, right? Maybe he was trying to kill himself. But maybe he knew he was going to die somehow. If you look in the history of the world, there are people that know they're going to die. I mean, they just know some people know even the day that they're going to die. Anyway, that's another subject. We could go into that another time. But here's the poem. So Jimmy gave Monika the poem after he wrote it. One thing he said to Monika out of the blue, he gave her the poem, and then he said to her, very seriously, "Wherever I will be, my spirit will always be in you. Never forget what I have just said." And Monica's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, and then he kind of watered it down a little bit. But for a moment there, he was tapping in, I would say, to his Christ essence. Wherever I will be in you. Right? I will always be in you. Never forget what I just said. Sounds like he knew he was going to die. A lot has been made about this party he went to that night. According to Monika, Jimmy was just going. He actually wanted Monika to call her. Not long after he was at the party, she did, and she made a big nuisance. And that's another reason why Monika was criticized. But apparently, this was all what Jimmy had asked her to do, so that he could get out of the party, which he did. He didn't stay at the party for very long. They went back to their flat where they were staying, where he died. And they stayed up. They talked till very early in the morning, like 7 a.m. This is her story. And then she woke up around 10-ish. I forget the whole thing that she said. I don't think it matters. She might have changed her story. She might have, again, she was probably scared. I'm going to try to end this video soon, because I think my battery's going to die at some point. So I think I've scratched the surface, and I've hopefully added something important to what is being said out there, because I think a lot is being missed. You know, you can't deny the fact, just like when people say about Jim Morrison that he was this buffoon, he was this bore, he was this loud, obnoxious drunkard. No, you just listen to his music, get to know the guy a little better. Maybe he was that way sometimes when he was drunk, and maybe Jimmy was that way too. But at heart, these guys were very deep, profound individuals. Very sensitive, very in touch with their own spirituality, which everyone has inherently. It's who we are. But artists tend to get there through whatever means they get there. They get in touch with that. And Jimmy was. So let's read this poem. Maybe we'll end with his poem. It's a song. And the reason why I know that is because Monika said that he had his guitar out. And you see at the beginning, in parentheses, he has the word slow, which is a musical direction. He's saying this is going to be slow, right? The story of Jesus, so easy to explain. After they crucified him, a woman, she claimed his name. The story of Jesus, the whole Bible knows, went all across the desert, and in the middle, he found a rose. There should be no questions. There should be no lies. He was married. He has two wases there. He was married ever happily after. Did he mean happily ever after, or did he do that on purpose? He wrote, he was married ever happily after, for all the tears we cry. No use in arguing, all the use to the man that moans. When each man falls in battle, his soul it has to roam. Angels of heaven, flying saucers to some, made Easter Sunday the name of the rising sun. The story is written by so many people who dared to lay down the truth to so very many who cared to carry the cross of Jesus and beyond. We will, now is it guide the light or gild the light? He wrote gild. We will gild the light, this time with a woman in our arms. We as men can't explain the reason why. The woman's always mentioned at the moment that we die. All we know is God is by our side, and he says the word, so easy yet so hard. I wish not to be alone, so I must respect my other heart. Oh, the story of Jesus is the story of you and me. The story of Jesus is the story of you and me. No use in feeling lonely. I am you searching to be free. It says, I am you searching to be free. The story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye. The story of love is hello and goodbye until we meet again. And that's the end. It's amazing. He scribbled this all down very quickly, according to Monika. She saw him do it. He handed it to her. It seems to be a message to her. It was for her. Now, was she the only one? Did he really feel that she was the one? Maybe he knew that. I mean, this was his last night on earth. And if you look at what she did after, she really was true to his spirit. She wrote this beautiful book about him, trying to show his deep spirituality and who he really was. You know, beyond all the lies and all the, there should be no questions, there should be no lies, what he wrote. But there were, and there are still a lot of lies. You know, she tried to correct this image of Jimi as being mainly this wild man who had a lot of sex and a lot of drugs and you know, all these, lived this rock and roll lifestyle. But at heart, she's trying to show that he was a deeply spiritual man who was really seeking God. And he was trying to promote peace, love, and music everywhere he went. He was in the army, but his real army was the army of God, and through the guitar, his guitar was his gun, his machine gun, and he was slaying with words and music, and blowing people away, right? He was everything that we really know that he was. You know, you just hear it in the music. You just got to listen to the music. I think that's really what you always got to do, is you have to listen to the music, because it's in the music. Don't look at the other stuff, but the proof is right there in the music. I think this was Jimi saying to Monika, "You are my beloved. You are Mary to me." Right? You are, maybe we're not going to marry, but you are the rose that I found in the middle of the desert. Almost makes me want to cry, you know, saying that. And I think, you know, Monika definitely has been misrepresented and has been accused of a lot of things that probably she did not deserve, does not deserve. Maybe she did, you know, they were both young. Jimi did some shitty things, I'm sure. Monika probably did as well. But the point is that, or let's just say not shitty things, but they made mistakes, as we all do. But the point is that this is where Jimi was coming to in his mind and his understanding, is that, you know, love is everything. And he was realizing that he had made a mistake in trying to get with all these different women. All he needed was one. Janis Joplin said the same thing in one of her songs, right? All you need is one, is one. You don't need all these other women, right? Or men, if you're a woman, or whatever, you know, whatever your sexuality is, you just need one. And he found the right one. And he found the person that was going to really carry through his legacy and promote who he really was. And for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, you will hear it and you will see it. But if you want to see Jimi otherwise, or listen to maybe some of the lies and distortions out there, then you will not see it. So that, I think I'm basically finished here. I might do another video, but that, I think that's enough for now. I think I pretty much covered what I wanted to cover there. I wish not to be alone, so I must respect my other heart. Well, the story of Jesus is a story of you and me. No use in feeling lonely, I am searching to be free. The story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye. The story of love is hello and goodbye. Until we meet again. Until we meet again. Until we meet again. Oh, Thanks for listening. Thank you, Jimi. And we'll see ya.